Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for tuning in to the newest episode of Uncovering the Underground radio show, brought to you by my companies Brutal Business Entertainment and Celestial Oddities Radio. As always, I will be your host and guide on this enthralling and encapsulating journey into underground entertainment. My name is Reverend Frater Crow, and I want to thank you for listening in tonight. Whether you're listening live, streaming after the fact, or you've downloaded this to your device for on the go, I do want to thank you for your patronage and support. Just make sure you click the like, share, and follow buttons on whatever platform you're listening to us from, whether it be iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Deezer, Spreaker, CastBox, Google Play, or Amazon Podcasts. You name it, we're on it, and any other sites out there that host online radio that I might have forgotten. Feel free to listen where you feel comfortable. By clicking the like, share, and follow button, it helps move us up the podcast community rankings, allows more people to discover the show, keeps you in the loop with new episodes as they air, and gives you unfiltered access to our past archives. And I can tell you there's something for absolutely everyone out there. Whether it's this specific show here, where we interview great, wonderful people in the underground scene, whether it be our show Knights of the Nephilim podcast based on esoteric science, occult doctrine, and ceremonial ritual magic, or it be our show Celestial Oddities Pair of Normal Guys podcast, where we deep dive into content matter of the supernatural and paranormal phenomena. We give you something for absolutely everyone out there. So feel free to browse around our catalog. We've released well over 120 episodes now between the three shows, and I'm sure you'll find something that you love. Tonight, we are on episode 17 of season 2 of Uncovering the Underground. So if you've missed any of the last 16 episodes, I certainly encourage you jump back and listen to some of our past guests, from death metal bands to ambient atmospheric progressive bands to models to oddity collectors and human skin restoration specialists. All kinds of amazing guests this season, and tonight will certainly be no different. We'll jump into a little bit about our guest here in a few minutes. If you are listening out there and you want to involve yourself in the show, there are great ways of doing that. And what I mean is, not only can you listen to the show through the methods that I mentioned earlier, but if you go through Spreaker, which is spelled Spreaker, so like speaker with an R, if you go through Spreaker, which is our hosting site, you can not only listen to the show, but it does give you a feature of instant messaging during the show so that you can ask our guests each week questions. You can, give responses to things we're talking about and just chat with us during the show, and we always read those out on the air, so feel free to do so. I always mention to everyone, if you have anything you'd like to see us do with the show, do differently with the show, folks you'd like to see us have on next season at the beginning of next year, feel free to message us at celestialoddities@gmail.com. Again, that is celestialoddities@gmail.com. You can also add and message us on the Uncovering the Underground Facebook group page. We suggest you like that and be a part of the community there. Or you can message me on the Frater Crow Facebook page, which is my personal Facebook. I'll make sure I always get back in touch with everyone and respond to you, so you never have to worry about that. Now, tonight we have something a little bit different. I got to be honest with you. I've had a lot of different guests of a lot of different backgrounds, but tonight will be our first stand-up comedian, and I am very excited about that. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about our guest tonight, and that is Lauryn Petrie. And Lauryn Petrie is a stand-up comic, writer, ex-autopsy assistant, and former drug addict. From cutting up dead bodies to living under a bridge, she finds humor where others fear to tread. Her unique life experiences create her singular blend of outrageous, macabre, and transgressive style of comedy. Lauryn has appeared at many prominent comedy festivals and has been heard on Sirius XM, Gas Digital, Sam Tripoli's Tinfoil Hat, and Zach Amici's, I can't pronounce the name properly, Midnight Spook Show. She co-produces a weekly comedy showcase with Jonas Barnes at the Tiny Cupboard in Bushwick called the Traumedy Hour. Based in New York City, she can be seen performing all over the city and nationwide on the road. And that is the introduction to our guest this evening, and I'm excited to jump into this content, jump into who she is, what she does, and let her tell you a little bit more about herself. So as I always say, Spark up a joint, crack open some beers, kick up your feet, and lend us your ears as we dig in and uncover the underground with Lauryn Petrie. How you doing tonight?
Hey, thanks for having me.
Oh, absolutely. I was excited to have you on the show. You know, it's funny because as I say every week, and I actually skipped it this week so I can kind of showcase it and throw it in now, I always say, you know, uncovering the underground from music to modeling to stars of the big screen, from comedy and oddities and everything in between. And that's kind of our catchphrase. And I always had comedy in there. Because I always
never
planned,
had a stand-up.
And exactly, and I've always planned on having a comedian on the show. It just has never happened. Why, I don't know, but tonight it has. So you've completed the circle.
I think because most stand-up is not underground. Like the style is not underground. There's not a lot of aggressive underground stand-up comedy out there.
Well, I think that's true. I think that's part of it. And I think for some reason, the personality of most stand-up comedians, they don't really want to come on an underground show. So even if they're not underground and I'm willing to have them on, they really don't want to be associated with this type of show because it is mainly death metal, heavy metal. You have oddities, collectors. You have a lot of strange underground stuff, and they feel like they don't fit. But this is actually right up your alley, which works perfectly.
Yeah, I mean, not to sound pretentious, but I think I'm the only comedian that, you know, is also into the occult and, you know, talks about death and have serial killer jokes with Easter eggs in them for true crime fans. Like I don't know anyone else, not even any other woman, but no other comedians I know of that are doing this kind of style. Who you mentioned in my bio, Zach Amico, you know, he could come on here. Like, he's into some cool shit, and he you know, he does Tromo movies, and he also does backyard wrestling, but he's highly intelligent and into all kinds of shit. And he's, you know, he's one of the other he's underground, but he's also very successful. So
it's hard to be. I mean, you're in a scene where, and we had talked personally amongst one another, you know, a couple of weeks ago, where you're in a scene that it's hard. Well, let me take a back step real quick. You are in a scene where a lot of raw and aggressive things are said, but there's also a line where it seems like if you cross that line, it's like the taboo line. So it's like, it's okay to be rowdy. It's okay to kind of say things that are like, holy shit, did they just say that? But then there's still that ceiling that you hit. And if you go beyond that, people are like, oh, wow. Like,
yeah, if you go beyond it, you can become unbookable.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, unfortunately, I started stand-up comedy in 2013, and it was just around that time that things got really woke and really, you know, these are topics you're allowed to talk about, and this is shit you can't talk about. And I started comedy on the West Coast, and there were even rooms there where they had a list of topics you weren't allowed to talk about. They were called safe rooms. Wow. So I used to look at that list and purposefully write jokes about the things that they told me not to. And I did that before I moved to New York. I went and did some safe rooms and got kicked out. But I mean, it's so stupid. I don't know if it's that far anymore, but there's definitely, I mean, if you look at the controversy with like Dave Chappelle and stuff, there's, you know, race, trans issues, those things are really hot button. And if you say the wrong thing, you can completely become unbookable. I don't talk about anything except stuff that's autobiographical. So I'm not that worried about it, but you know, at the same time, I think I also take things in a direction that people don't expect. So
well, I think it's good to do that, though. And sometimes you just have to go for it. I mean, like you mentioned Dave Chappelle. I mean, Dave Chappelle's always been one that's really never held his tongue. And I mean, it's caused him some shit over the years, but he's certainly said some pretty wild things. And you know, you have to just go for it sometimes. Fuck it, you know? And I mean, if you're not going to get booked again, so be it. But it reminds me of an artist that I talked about a couple weeks ago on the show that I booked him. Didn't really know much about him. Some other folks that I knew was like, book this dude, man. Book him. Mm-hmm. He's intense. I'm like, all right, I booked him. It was beyond anything I expected. And afterwards, I was like, dude, that was something. And he's like, yeah. I says, I got to be honest with you, bro. I don't know if I can ever book you again. I was like, but hey, man, I appreciate your art. He's like, oh, it's no worries, bro. I pretty much get banned from every venue I've ever played. He's like, so I kind of came here tonight expecting that I'll probably never be back. And I was like, well, that's one way of looking at it, man. It was just very brutal, which I did very hardcore underground hip-hop and horrorcore for years. So, I mean, hardcore is a part of it. I wasn't expecting to see this dude, like, shooting staples with a staple gun into his forehead and bleeding all over the stage and then choking out his girlfriend until she was, like, passed out. And it's like, that's a part of their show, what they do. But he was like legitimately choking this chick out, and the whole crowd was like, "What the fuck are we watching right now?" And he was like, "Oh, that's what I do."
Didn't Gigi Allen already do all that?
Yeah, he was some straight up Gigi Allen underground horrorcore shit. So I mean, I've seen it before, but I just wasn't expecting when I booked this kid. He was like a shy, kind of quiet dude. He showed up. I'm like, hey, welcome to the show. You know, we're excited to have you on. Oh, thank you. Blah, blah. Real quiet. And then he comes out on stage and is blasting staples into his head and gushing blood everywhere and choking this chick out. And I'm like, oh. I'm like, it was my fault for really not knowing a whole lot about him before I booked him. But it was all right. I thought it was a fun time. It's just the bar owner came up to me and they're like, hey, dude, you can't.
What the fuck, dude?
You can't bring this dude back here again. I'm like, yeah, I already figured that.
I mean, it sounds fun. I mean, I don't know. I mean, he needs therapy, but, you know, fuck it. It's not hurting anybody, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, hey, I dug it. Like I said, some of the people in the crowd liked it. I think there was a few that liked it that wouldn't admit that they did. There was a few that did admit it, and then most of the crowd was just like, we're going to go out and smoke right now.
I mean, also, could do something that Gigi Allen didn't do. Like, do something really original, because, you know.
Well, I am glad that he didn't, like, shit in his hand and start throwing it on the crowd like some Gigi Allen, because I would have been really pissed off.
That's completely hack at this point.
Yeah, if he would have done that, not only would I, you know, had to absolutely call him out on his copying, but I would have had to probably, you know, I don't know, spray him with a fucking fire extinguisher or something and get him the hell out of there, because no throwing shit at my shows.
That could only be funny if it was commentary about COVID. You know, if he would like had the shit in his hand and he was like, not COVID or something, like then maybe it could be like art.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't know if it could be art in any sense of the way. I don't know. When you start to shit in your hand, you kind of breach a line. And a line that I don't think you want to breach. I mean, I'm all for pushing boundaries, but that's a little too much for me.
I mean, when I first started, I was booked on a corporate gig. I should never be booked on a corporate gig ever. And I just remember the people in the audience staring at each other like, are we allowed to laugh at this? Are we going to get fired if we laugh? And the
like
promoter, I think he was pissed at whatever the situation was with money. And so he brought me just to be like, fuck you guys, and didn't tell me the situation. As he was laughing, he was just like giggling like a little kid the whole time. And I was like, oh, I don't belong here. I was still a new comic. I was like, oh, that's what's happening.
That's awesome, though. Like, you know what? I'm going to quit my job today, but they put me in charge of hiring the entertainment, so I'm going to get one last hoorah in before I walk out.
Something like that was going on.
That's what's up, though. So why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got started? You said you started out in 2013, you know, doing stand-up comedy. What made you choose this path, and kind of tell us a little bit about your passion into getting into it, how it was for starting, because I talk to a lot of musicians and I know how nerve-wracking can be your first show coming out in front of a crowd and things like that, but I would have to imagine that as a stand-up comedian it would be even more so, because I could come out and stand behind my guitar. Even though you can fully see me, I can look down and dive into my music, dive into my guitar. When you're a stand-up comedian, it's you in the crowd. There's really nowhere to hide. You
have to be fully present and ready to be you'll have your soul torn down. You have to be, that's what makes it so kind of exhilarating. It's almost like it's an extreme sport if you think about it. That's why, I mean, it's definitely an extreme art form. It's the most raw. But it's a long story. I started when I was a kid. I was a child actor. I did a couple of commercials. I was in a TV movie with Goldie Hawn. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to really pursue that. I had a really abusive home situation, and so I wasn't able to, I didn't have the resources and the support to, really follow through with any of that. And then I was homeless, living under a bridge on drugs for a long time, and then I got out of that, and kind of. And then I was, half-heartedly, attempting to go to college, and then I was a stripper for a while, and then they fired me for being too fat, and then I was a cam girl, and then I went and worked on a weed farm in Oregon, and then I was kind of really lost for a long time. I always had this need to get up and perform, but to tell you the truth, stripping really kind of made me realize how funny I could be, and I hadn't been exercising that muscle, because I seriously, like, stripping wasn't just about being sexy for me. It was like, stripping's ridiculous. There's an unspoken agreement with, like, that I'm not actually going to date you, but you're going to come in here and give me money. It's just really silly. And you're like a therapist and you use all these active listening skills in a bikini. It's just weird. The whole thing is weird. And I always found it hilarious. And I'd sit there and talk to guys, and then they go get a dance with someone else. And I'd be like, why? And they'd be like, well, you're too smart. And I was like, I can be dumb. Like, there were so many funny moments. It's also a predatory sales job, but like, I just realized, like, there's so many opportunities to just ham it up. And then after that, the whole thing, I worked on this weed farm, and then I smoked DMT for the first time. And I mean, this sounds really corny, but it's true. When I had my DMT trip, I had this moment where I kind of looked at our, like, the earth, I guess is the best way to put it. And I kind of had this thought of, this is a game. We're here, and this is a game. And, if I couldn't fail, what would I do? And the first answer I had was, I would do stand-up comedy, and why haven't I done that yet? So I just started. I mean, I'd always been a huge fan, but I was a really big fan of underground comics like Doug Stanhope, who, if you guys out there listening have not heard Doug Stanhope, do yourself a favor. Go look up No Refunds for free on YouTube. This guy is a living legend. You will hear about him. And he's written books. He's successful. He's just not like a household name because he's extremely subversive. I used to lock people in my car and, like, force them to listen to him before I ever did stand up. But so then I just started doing open mics, and I prepared, open mics where you prepare 5 minutes and you go up and you do a 5 and you try to get to what they call your tight 5. But this is the fucking truth. My very first time doing it, there was a established headliner named Belinda Carroll in the audience, and she was like, that wasn't your first time. You're fucking lying. And I was like, no, I didn't have the stage fright because I'd been in front of crowds when I was really little doing, like, stage stuff, like theater. And she took me on the road with her. And it was a lot of synchronicity because the place that she was going to tour was a city that I just previously lived in and been a stripper in. I was like, you're going to Boise, Idaho? Like, I just fucking left that fucking shit pile. Yeah, I'll go do some shit.
What a complete random town, too.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. Yeah. Well, Portland, Oregon, and Boise are kind of close. And I was homeless. I was like, I was all heroin chic. I was a fucking homeless heroin kid in Oregon. And then when I left, the boyfriend who was, my life is an after school special, dude. This is fucking the opposite of Hallmark. But he was on the run from a prison gang, and so we went to stay with his dad in Idaho, and then I ended up living there for a little while. So then I went and did some shows with her, and then I went back to Oregon, and I kept doing shows, networked. I got into some comedy festivals, and I was in a pretty big comedy festival called Cape Fear Comedy Festival, and I got scouted by a really well-known club owner and national comedy booker. She owned a club in New York called The Creek and the Cave, and she was like, you have to go to New York. And that she saw me. So my dad came to this comedy festival, and my dad has Asperger's, and he's kind of a computer genius, but he's really socially awkward. And he's like, honey, I won't heckle you, I promise. And of course he heckles the fuck out of me. And I don't remember how it went, but I just lost my shit on stage, and I was like screaming at him. I was, making fun of him having herpes and, like, screaming about how people should fuck him in the crowd. And then that comedy booker came up, and she was like, was that staged or was that real? And I was like, no, dude, that's just how we are. So anyway, she got me drunk, and she put me in the back of a van and drove me to New York. And I've been here ever since.
Okay. So yeah, you had some certain, just a mixture of things going on that kind of led to your path and getting into comedy, but I like it. I mean, kind of a wild ride that kind of trained you in an essence to do what you're doing now, whether it be stripping, whether it be, childhood acting. All of that kind of taught you to be in front of crowds. It taught you to deal with people. It taught you about being somewhat comfortable in awkward situations. And I agree with you on the stripper thing. It is a funny funny like mixture of things going on. As a guy going into a strip club, you're like, I'm about to go blow all the money I have to walk out with blue balls.
Yeah, why?
And it's a really strange thing. And when I was young, like when I first turned like 18, I went to the strip club a few times. There was a strip club around the little town I grew up in, and it was BYOB. So me and some buddies would go up there and get absolutely fucking shit-faced. And it was fun for us. We would go and just get wasted, watch some titties, and but then after I started to get older, I'm like, this is fucking dumb.
You're like, wait a minute, the game is rigged.
Yeah, the game is rigged. I'm like, I am now broke. I'm drunk as shit. I ain't getting anywhere with anybody. And what did I accomplish? Nothing.
And instant gratification
and then
fantasy.
People were still wanting to go. People were still like, oh man, we're going up to the club. You coming? I'm like, nah, bro, I'm good. I'm gonna skip out. And then I just quit going and never went back again. And I know people that still go to clubs often. Like, hey, a couple of the guys are getting together. I'm like, yeah, I'm cool, man. Like, I just don't see going and dropping $200 tonight of my hard-earned money.
Only 200? Well, fuck you. First off, no, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, well, I'm a low spender guy, so But you gotta think though. I was going to smaller clubs. I wasn't going to some of the big clubs because you're really dropping money there.
I worked in a really shit club in Idaho. It was a really shit club. It was literally in a log cabin. Does that give you an idea?
That's awesome.
Yeah, and so I mean, I've never been rich. I was fucking Idaho rich, but then they fired me for being too fat twice from the same club.
Twice from the same club.
They're like, yeah, no, come back. Like, you really like you. We miss you. And then, we changed our mind. Soul crushing, man. Soul crushing.
That's crazy. Well, hey, it led you to where you're at now. And I mean, New York, that's a hell of a city to do comedy in. I mean, out of all the cities in America you could be, New York's one of the ones that you really want to be in. I think that there's a lot of potential there, a lot of clubs. And I think that is one of the cities that you could be a little bit more raw as you are and get away with it.
I agree with that. I definitely don't have a set that would be what they call a road set. I would just, my big thing is I'm not going to pander. I'm not going to change my material to be more successful or to reach a wider audience. That's kind of against my principles, and I suffer for it because, I'm not going to get the agent right away. I'm not going to get the really big bookings because I'm a risk at this point, but I'd rather be a risk and stay true to my artistic vision than, sell out and start doing like Tinder material. So, but yeah, I mean, New York is a place where you can get away with a lot. Also, there's some rooms here where it's actually super, super pretentious and woke. So like you'd actually be pretty surprised. You just have to know, there's a lot of, it's, you know what, I hate to say this, but you never leave high school. The comedy community is one big high school. There's all these different cliques in it, and you have to find your tribe.
You know what, though? That's as you said, you never leave high school no matter what you do, because there's cliques in everything, whether it be comedy, whether it be music, I'm talking from my days in pretty successful, death metal band, cliques. Whenever I did quite well in the underground hip-hop scene, cliques. In occultism, there's a lot of cliques, and you wouldn't think that, but there's like these scenes of like these holier-than-thou false prophets who portray themselves as being gods, and they have like this community that follows them, and they're like, such and such is enlightened, and I'm like, such and such is a moron. I'm like, his fucking work's garbage.
I've read some Reddit threads about people in the it's just people talking shit, and I'm like, wow, it really is like high school everywhere. You're
everywhere.
So right.
I mean, there's a lot of us that don't partake in that at all, but there are some that have used that to their advantage, and they've taken it and made it exactly, people say, what's the occult scene like, or what's the comedy scene like? Well, that word's important because they've made it into a scene where it's not about, let's discuss the ancient doctrines of time and figuring out humanity. No, let's make this into some type of edgelord soap opera and make it into a cliquey thing, and we all got our own cliques and scenes, and it's just weird. Everything that humans get involved with, they have to make it cliquey.
Yeah, I don't know if why is that in our DNA? Like, it doesn't seem to. There must be some benefit to it, but I don't see it.
I think it goes back to the old saying: is too many chiefs, not enough Indians.
I think it feels like too many Indians, not enough chiefs in comedy. But
well, that's what it is, though. So it's inverted. So there's too many people wanting to play chief, but there's not enough Indians. But in actuality, there's way too many Indians and not enough actual chiefs. So it's backwards. But people don't look at it like that. Everyone wants to be a leader. It goes back to the other famous saying: is everyone wants to be the king until they're handed the crown. And as soon as they're handed the crown, they're like, oh, shit, I didn't actually want this. But your whole life, you talked about wanting to be the king. Here it is. Yeah. Oh, fuck, no, I don't want that.
I don't want that responsibility.
Yeah, I don't want that responsibility. I just want to talk about wanting it.
You know, I think the problem in comedy is content creation, social media. What the trend that I'm seeing now since I started is a lot of really attractive influencers, male and female, like Instagram influencers and Instagram models who have created a big platform online, and then they're like, well, I think I could do stand-up, and then they do, and they're decent. They're not terrible. They're not bombing. They're okay. And then they think they're comics, and then they have this, you know, this platform behind them, and they can really drive the numbers, and they end up getting booked because they're all smoking hot, and people come to the clubs and sex sells, and they do well, but you know, they're not joke writers. They're not, in my opinion, not all. Some are not like as good as some of the other, you know, just pure comics that have been doing it, you know, longer than me even. You know, well, there's plenty of people doing it longer than me. You know, most comedians only break after 10 to 14 years. And most people don't know that. They see these people on Netflix or they see a comedy special on HBO and they're like, yeah, that's comedy. But they have no idea that that person has been grinding and being rejected for 25 years.
What's easy to get that perception is that someone comes out in the scene and they come out quick and they get big quick. To them, they don't realize that they didn't get big quick at all. I mean, they're in their 18th year of doing this, so it's actually taken a long ass time to get this big. But you heard about them 6 months ago, and 1 year later, they're huge, and you're like, oh man, this new comedian's just blowing up. Well, they're not new; they're only new to you.
Yeah, I mean, I am working just regular day jobs and Joe jobs and stuff. When I talk about with comedy, when I'm not talking to artists, they're always shocked. They're like, it takes that long? Like, and they're like, there's no money? Nobody believes that. Like, you know, spot pay in New York is like $15-20. You know, you do four shows a night, or you do 2 or 3 shows a week. I mean, no one's paying any bills off of this. You could get some money if you do road work, but then you're breaking even with travel and lodging, and you know, it's all, you just suffer. You suffer for it until you get a break, or you create something. The whole thing now is to quote unquote create your own pirate ship. You know, that's why everyone has a podcast, is to reach that fan base, create something special and niche, and then keep doing comedy. But comedy is not the thing that's going to make a comedian famous now. It's got to be something else that you do.
Well, I think that's a downfall right there. I mean, so 2 things I want to point out. One is that is the case, is now it's like no one can be just what they are. Everyone has to be multiple things. I mean, you have to have 15 different tentacles coming off you, you know, so you could do all these different things, because everybody wants to see everything. It's because everything's on demand, everything's now. And I've talked about this on the show before, that even music has taken a heavy hit over the years, because now you can get more music than you ever could. So at the click of a button, I can get any album I ever wanted, which is beautiful. But the problem with that is you have too many options. It's like when you go to a restaurant and you look at a menu and it's like 7 pages long, it takes you forever to order, because you're like, well, what the fuck am I supposed to do with this? Whereas if they give you a 1-page menu, you order quick and you're just as happy with the 7 as you are with the 1. The only difference is it's so much harder to decide, and that's what this is you don't know what I want to do. Well, podcasting is big, so I need to do podcasting. Well, okay, you know, stand-up's big, books are big. There's all these different things that we have to jump into to try to appease the masses if you're trying to keep and gain fans. It was never like that. It's with the invention of social media and how big technology's gotten that no one's attention is kept long. So, okay, they watch you as a comedian for 2 years, but then they're like, well, we want to see you write a book now. We want to see. And I know you are writing a book, but I mean, they want to see all these other avenues.
It's like that, and that's not, I don't really think that's to, I don't think we're going to blame like the viewers and the audience on that. I think that's the industry, because for instance, like even 15 years ago, you could just be a really solid comedian and performer and writer, and you could get an agent because you were talented. And it doesn't work that way anymore. It's like, okay, great. Well, they're really good at this thing, but what are they making money? What are their numbers? What's their audience? And if you're not already proving that you're able to monetize yourself, an agent won't even look at you. You could be fucking the next like brilliant Louis C.K. style writer, and if you're not making money doing it, they won't even look, they won't even pay attention to you. What they want to see is that you're already monetizing yourself in some way, and then they'll give you the time of day, they'll have a meeting. But you have to be doing something that makes money, and comedy doesn't pay. So you have to do something else on the side to show them that you're marketable. And that is it's just the way it is, you know? And I fought against it for a long time. I'm like, I'm just going to be a pure comedian. That's all I'm going to do. And I can't. I have, you know, then I had this crazy experience working in the morgue, and I organically started writing a book. So, you know, there's that, and then I am starting a podcast. So I mean, hopefully I can create my niche cult like fan base and rule them all. And but you know, create a little bit of monetization off of that and show them that I can have a fan base, and that, you know, all bleeds into each other. You know, so the stuff I talk about in stand up is also in the book, which is also in the podcast. Which, you know, I'm developing a cartoon that I'm trying to pitch to Adult Swim. I just need the money to finance the animation. So everything's back to money.
Well, we're going to jump into each one of those things here shortly. Before you do, I want to kind of jump into one of the things you said. Nipsey Hussle, you know, rest in peace. He had a video where he had said he was given a very valuable piece of information from 50 Cent. He said, the industry kept telling me that I shouldn't have sold my EP, because he's famous for selling that EP and selling like, I don't know how many thousands in one night when it came out, and he sold each one of them for like $100 a piece. So it was this mind-bending thing where he sold an EP for $100 an album and sold like 10,000 of them like a day. So it became this big thing, but the industry kept telling him, well, you should have made it an album because to think of how well your sales would have went. He says, the most valuable piece of advice I ever got was from 50 Cent, who told me, you did it perfectly. But here's why. It's not even probably the way you thought of it. By keeping it an EP, you gain the traction and acknowledgement from all kinds of label heads and different people in the industry because they've seen what kind of numbers you were able to do as someone unsigned. So it got you the static. What it also did for you is by not having it as an album, it was in your favor. The reason being is if it was an album, you did well, but you didn't do that well for a major artist by any means. So when they're negotiating with you at the negotiating table, they base what they're going to give you as a sign-on bonus and as your contract off of your numbers of album sales. But I've never sold an album. I've only sold EPs. So now I have the top labels in the world looking at me because of the things in static I got, but they can't base it off of that. They can only base it off my fan base. So in essence, what I'm saying is that he did the perfect thing because he got the traction and got a much better deal than he would have if he had it as an album. But that's exactly how the label heads look at it in the industry, is it's all about numbers now. You can show that, hey, I sold all these units overnight. They don't care. What's your numbers? What's your Twitter feed like? What is your Instagram followers like? We want to know what kind of static you have on the different social media platforms. And that's crazy. You could be a genius at comedy. They don't care. It's about the exteriors, not exactly the comedy. They would rather have a half-mediocre comic that has major pull than a genius comic that has no fans on the social media platforms.
I hate to say it, but you're 1,000% correct, and that is the way it is. That is just the way it is.
Like, I've been denied at some point. It changed.
Really, I've been denied shows and big opportunities because they said, well, your social media just isn't big enough to book you.
That's fucked up, isn't it? It's like you don't even know what it sounds like.
And they won't even watch your tape. They're just like, you don't even have the numbers for us to look at you. And I'm like, catch-22, bitch. Like, how do I get the numbers if you don't, like, give me exposure? But whatever. You know, I've done decent for myself. I'm not a bitter, you know, fuck the industry kind of jaded I don't like the way it is with all the content creation. But you know what? It is the way it is. You know, I'm going with the flow. I've been in some pretty prestigious festivals. I've worked along. I mean, I could name drop people, some really big people that I respect a lot, and I was very fortunate to work with them. And I've had some good shit happen. So I'm not like super bitter. But yeah, you got to play the game, and you can't just be resentful. But it does fucking suck, and I don't think it's fair. I'll say that.
You just reminded me. I remember whenever I moved to Pittsburgh, I went around. I was a hip hop artist, and I went around to multiple clubs, and I was like, hey, I would love to play here. I did what I thought was right, because most rappers aren't going and knocking on the door of the club and trying to talk to the club owner to get in. They're just hoping that they find the promoter, this or that. I went and knocked on doors. It was like, hey, I would love to play your club. Hip hop artist and new to the scene here, and got laughed out of a lot of places, or we're not interested, blah, blah, blah. I kept saying, well, you haven't actually heard me perform. I can give you my tape. You can give me, a spot at one of the shows for 5 minutes. I'll show you what I can do, and I think you'll want me back time and time again. I can pull a crowd, and I'm very talented. No, we're not interested. Now, it was very interesting because about 2 years later, I got a major contract offer for distribution and recording. And at this point, all of a sudden, everyone that turned me down was like, hey, we would love to have you here. You signed with such and such. And I'm like, yeah, I did. Oh, we would love to have you here, blah, blah, blah. And I could have been like, like you said, fuck the industry. I ain't coming back. You screwed me. No, I took advantage of it. I'm like, sure, I would love to come. And I came and crushed it. And they knew I knew. And I just kind of looked at them like, you wouldn't even give me a shot 2 years ago. But if you were smart 2 years ago, you could have been making money off me by booking venues. And you would have made more than I made. I would have made $60 performing, and you would have made thousands.
Yeah.
But you didn't even want to give me a chance because I didn't have the buzz. But then guess what? I got the buzz, and then I could have turned them down. So it is weird how that works on things, and the social media has really taken a major front seat to everything, where it's all about numbers instead of talent, and that's unfortunate. But it does bring out gold. I will say that by having so much platforms out there, or so many platforms, that artists are discovered every day in multiple genres of things that never would have been discovered. But now you also, and a caveat to that, have 50,000 times more people to sift through to try to find the good ones.
Yeah, I mean, I truly believe that this is the time for underground artists because of that, because of the saturation. If you're somebody that really has something different, then you lean hard into that, then you're going to find your people.
True.
So it was after. I mean, I had always been dark and abrasive and, aggressive, but it was really after I worked in the morgue that my comedy I finally was just like, I could get hit by a bus tomorrow. I'm going to do exactly what I want to do.
No, I hear you. I mean, it really brings you to grasp with how fragile life is. I mean, you can live 100 years through all kinds of different bumps and bruises, but you can also be gone in a split second. And it's really a wild perspective to think about that. You've been around for X amount of years at this point. I've been through all kinds of shit. But in a mere second, you can be wiped off this earth like you never even existed.
Oh,
and
dude,
it just shows you how fragile it is.
Everybody on the morgue table didn't think they'd be there the day before,
True.
And in New York, I mean, if you're a morgue tech, you get to do autopsies with the doctor, and then some days you get to go out on what they call the medical examiner truck, the MET truck, and you pick up the bodies from the death scenes or the murder scenes. And let me just say this to New Yorkers, like, if you weigh over 250 pounds, could you please stop dying on 5-story walk-ups with no elevator? Because fuck you. Like, do you know how hard it is to carry your fat asses down in the summer? Like, I lost so much weight carrying dead people during COVID. Like, that is a workout program I cannot sell. But seriously, it was like CrossFit. But corpse fit is what I called it.
Corpse fit.
But like, everyone gets an autopsy in New York, even only if your family objects to you not. But they just, like, if someone could get shot in the head, there's no mystery. There's no question. They do an autopsy, There are times when someone got run over 9 times by subway trains because they were just, they got electrocuted on the third rail and they're lying there. And they do an autopsy, and the doctors would literally, like, hold the torso up and be like, why are we doing this?
I mean, it's crazy to think about that. I mean, some of the things that people you don't think about on your normal day, a lot of the jobs that you wouldn't really ever think you'd want. The regular mass population isn't going to want to be in the autopsy room. So you don't even think about it.
I truly think that they should be forced to. I think everybody should have to be a morgue tech for like 3 months of their life. I think we would treat each other a little differently, especially in a big city like this where everyone's crammed in together. I don't think so many people would lean over the subway tracks saying, "Oh, is the train coming?" like a fucking idiot. I think a lot of things would change if everyone had to like clean up human decomposition like a few times.
Well, and the thing is most people, death is scary to most people, so they push it back with everything that they have and ignore it. And it's easy to just brush it off. You don't think about it. I'm afraid of death, so I just don't even talk about it. I don't think about it. I don't look at it. But it is, we're all going to die. It's the one guarantee in life. We're all going to meet that end at some point in time.
Yeah, but then they just, that's why they created religion, because everyone's scared of the unknown. So they want this nice, cushy little thing. Oh, we're going to live forever if you believe in the fucking magic man. So, I mean, that's how people deal with it. And I loved when I worked at the morgue. One of my favorite things was to get off work with like a really disgusting case in my head, fresh in my head that I just worked on, and then go to the grocery store and just wait for someone to start making small talk with me, which I hate. I would just wait for it, and I'd be like, "Oh, I had a crazy day. We had this guy that had a dildo jumped up his ass, and then he had dildo down his throat, and he was crawling with maggots, and the doctor made me take the dildo out of his mouth to see where it cut off his airway. Man, what kind of day did you have?" I fucking loved that. It was the best.
I would imagine. Yeah, I'm sure you got certainly some looks. It's visceral. It's something that, like I said, most people can't handle, but they should handle. And I mean, I agree with you to an extent on the religious part. I mean, religion was made to give a fanciful way of controlling people while they're here, to give them kind of a pretty end. Now, I do believe that there is life after this. I don't believe that this is it. I mean, there is. Our souls are eternal. We are like a lantern. The flame inside the lantern isn't the lantern. The lantern's only the housing of the flame.
I hope you're right. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I became super nihilist, and maybe you can be a friend that can help me get out of that mindset. But
get out of the mindset, man, because nihilism and even atheism isn't the way to go. No, it goes to so many different perplexing levels. But I'm not saying that it's the same thing as religion's preaching. I'm not saying it's the nihilist perspective. I'm saying it's somewhere in between there is where the sweet spot is. And
well, I'll tell you this, like when I was taking brains out of people's heads, when you get to the bottom of the brain, it literally looks like audio-visual equipment, like from tech theater. It's fucking wires and shit.
We're just avatars. That's all we are.
Yeah,
I mean,
and I start thinking about this had electricity pulsing through it, and I'm holding this, this glumpy fat gelatin, and I'm like, this was somebody's whole life. Like all their memories, everything is in my hands, but nobody cared about that kind of shit in the morgue. They were just like, yeah, fucking put it in the bowl and weigh it. Like, stop talking.
Get it done. Get it done. We got shit to do. We got 4 more.
Yeah, we got 2 more bodies. Get that body. I would always be like cleaning because I cared, and they're just like, these motherfuckers are dead. Fucking knock it off and get the next body on the table. Nobody gives a fuck at the morgue in New York. We ran out of bleach for 2 weeks. Nobody cared. Like, it's that kind of place.
I mean, well, it is New York City, so I mean,
they're like, why do we have to disinfect it? They're dead.
True. I mean, and like I said, I mean, the human vessel's important, but I am a firm believer that this simply is a avatar. I mean,
it's totally. I mean,
the reason why is 2 of the biggest movies. So when you think about like really groundbreaking movies, you think of Matrix and you think of Avatar. And why are these movies so popular? Because we deep down inside of our own minds and psyche know that these are true. We know that, okay, in Avatar, they beamed inside these vessels that the other alien beings couldn't tell were fake. And it was actually a consciousness of a human in this alien avatar. Well, that's what we are now. We are the consciousness of spirit, simply riding around in this meat sack.
I call it meat sacks too. That's after working the morgue. I'm like, take care of your meat sack, because that's all it is, really, if you look inside. But what you're saying is also what a lot of alien abductees say, that, I mean, listen, I don't have any first-person experience or claim to, but I'm a nerd, and I watch a ton of alien abduction shit because I'm interested. And what they're saying is that there's a whole human hybrid program going on, and that their vessels are failing them, and that's why they have to make human hybrids. And they're already walking among us, if you didn't know. I was a weird first date for a long time. I'll say that.
Well, I mean, so I don't know about the human hybrid thing, but I can tell you that a lot of spirits that you can summon and conjure, they can and will sometimes appear in your mind's eye, not as you would think they would. So we think daemons or demons. We think of all these evil-looking beings with horns and all this, and in some cases they can take on that form. But what a lot of people have, found from, conjuring certain beings is that a lot of them appear as what we have been described the Greys look like, what we have been described other alien beings look like. Mm-hmm. So then it comes to question, what are daemons, what are angels? Are angels and daemons forms of interdimensional intelligences? Are really what we've always considered religion to be based off of in a Western sense, angels of God, are they really just alien beings? So that gets into a whole different crazy topic, but I mean that could very well be the case, is they are some type of higher dimensional intelligence.
Right. I mean, if you look at like old fairy tales and you want to do a reconstruction of those through a modern lens, you get alien abduction with, the Fae and that kind of thing. So I think whatever this phenomenon is, it's always been with us. We're just, our perspective changes, and then the vessel that we talk about it, that changes. It goes from like fairies to aliens there's something happening. There's definitely some kind of phenomena that's been interacting with our consciousness for millennia, and we just call it different things at different stages of time.
I agree with that. I mean, there's a lot out there. I can tell you from being a practitioner of 18 plus years, almost 20 years, I have come across a lot of different things. And this isn't a show to dive into it. Folks, if you're listening out there and interested in this type of content, check out Knights of the Nephilim podcast, which is based on ceremonial and ritual magic. We talk a lot about practices and things you can do to tap into these type of consciousnesses. But what I'm saying is there is a lot out there. And you can come face to face with things that just truly can't be explained, that are definitely not within your mind. You're not making it up. And they will blow your mind when you do meet them. You're like, oh shit, there's things all around us. So if that interests you folks, jump into that show. In fact, we are actually starting June 30th is our first episode of season 3, in which we will be bringing on Thomas Leroy, the founder and creator of the Sect of the Horn God, which is a great satanic organization that is worldwide. Happy to be a part of the sect myself, and we'll be having great conversations. So if you're listening out there, check it out. Now, before we go any further with any of this conversation, I do want to jump into our first song of the evening. So we're going to pick one off of the list, and I'm going to let you pick, and I do it by color. So, Lauren, tell me, do you want orange, yellow, green, or we'll just call it blue, even though it's more aqua. So orange, yellow, green, or blue?
Oh, let's do blue.
Blue. So blue would be Skies of Terra. And the song is The Great Big Yellow House in the Sky. And we'll be right back after this on Uncovering the Underground. All right, guys, we're back on Uncovering the Underground Radio Show. I am Frater Crow, and you've been hanging out with us for the last 52 minutes while we interview stand-up comedian Lauryn Petrie from New York City. We've been finding out a little bit more about her, about what she does, how she got into the industry of stand-up comedy, and about her journey. So if you've missed any of that, don't fret. Listen to the end of this episode as it is live, and then you can always jump back and stream the beginning again, or hell, just listen to the whole episode again. We advise it. I always make sure to tell you to listen to the episodes of the season so far as well. We have 16 other episodes this season of great guests, so there's something for absolutely everyone out there. During the break there, we played a song from a past guest of the show. That was Skies of Terra, and the name of the song is The Great Big Yellow House in the Sky. Now, we've been jumping into all sorts of great topics. Now, I want to take some time to read out some of the comments coming in. We have, let's see here. I would definitely work in a morgue. Comes from Lamina. We have...
Wait, can I respond to these as you read them?
Absolutely.
So, okay, Lamina, I thought that too. And let me say this, the bodies and the stuff you learn from the doctors and the anatomy is fascinating. I still think about it all the time. I learned a lot, but it depends where you work. I worked for the city, and when you work for the city, everyone's underpaid, overworked, and the culture at the morgue in New York is really negative. They encourage people to write emails about each other. People fail upwards. Like a guy brought the wrong body back. You know, he should have been fired for that, but instead he threw somebody else under the bus and he got promoted. And it's just a really toxic culture. And I was excited. I was like the goth girl there that was like, the guy got twisted up by the subway. This is fucking awesome. And they would just look at me like, what's wrong with you? Like, we just want to go home. So nobody was excited except for me and a couple of the cool doctors. But I was mostly just sitting there going, why don't you guys think this is cool? And they were telling me to shut up. So, research where you're going to go work. But maybe being a mortician, because those places are owned by families. And I don't know. That's a whole different side of the industry that's more aesthetic. And, there's a lot of schooling involved. But if you want to go be a morgue tech for the city or your municipal whatever, you just need a high school diploma. And they'll teach you how to butcher a human. So, go for it.
And I think that's it. It all depends on what city you're in. That's a bad city, especially during a bad time.
During the height of the pandemic. Let me tell you something really funny. This is the truth, because at the height of the pandemic, it was like we'd just get COVID, OD, suicide, OD, suicide, OD, COVID, suicide, COVID, OD. It got monotonous. And then a few months into the pandemic, we got our first homicide, and everyone was like, oh, fuck, New York is back, baby. We're going to make it. And my thought to that was okay, so he killed somebody, but so he was planning on killing this guy, but he had to wait until the CDC told him it was okay to go kill him. And I thought that was really funny.
Yeah, it's a wild time. And when you think about it, and like you said, it would be a lot of COVID deaths, a lot of suicide, because unfortunately, the numbers of COVID deaths aren't just from COVID itself. It is depression. It's being shut in. It's the world shutting down.
Fentanyl. It's the fentanyl epidemic of 2020 to 2022, man. Every OD was positive for fentanyl. So if you guys are partying, I highly advise you to buy some fentanyl testing strips. All right, go on with the comments. I'm interested.
Okay, so we read that. Where are we at here? We have a few comments relating to the Knights of the Nephilim when we're talking about the occultism, saying, can't wait for Knights of the Nephilim season to return back. Sounds very exciting. I'm reading multiple ones here. Seen the lineup, very excited. Yes, folks, if you are excited for Knights of the Nephilim Season 3 to kick in, we got guests from Poland. We got guests from South Africa. We got guests from Northern Africa. We got guests from South America. We got guests from all over the place, and these are some of the top occultists in the entire world. And I'm not going by Facebook status, folks. I'm not going by how many likes these folks have. I'm talking about raw, real material, some of the realest motherfuckers you're going to come across when it comes to actually practicing the art of magic and ceremonial ritual. And I'm very excited for Season 3. So if you're listening out there, tune in. It starts June 30th. And like I said, that's with Thomas Leroy of the Sect of the Horn God. Let's see. That is a bit humorous if he wanted to kill that person. I'm not sure what you mean.
Oh, wait, what he was talking about, what I was saying is, like, we didn't get a homicide until the pandemic died down. So it's as if people in New York waited to leave their house to commit murder for the CDC to tell them that it was okay, which is fucking hilarious.
It's like, all right, you guys can go back to it now, kill each other and get it going.
Yeah, it's safe. No more COVID. Game warfare is on. We're in the Bronx. We're gonna set a timer, like, and go.
I can't imagine. I mean, every city has its murders, and I mean, here in Pittsburgh is a pretty high murder rate, and I couldn't imagine that compared to New York, though. I mean, it would be insane to work in that field and that many bodies come across. Now, it's strange that it didn't for a time period because of COVID, but yeah, that's on an average year. Can you imagine? I mean, you obviously can, but
I mean, it gets when you work in that field. I mean, there's a lot of I can look back on for the book that I find really ironic and funny, but like you end up watching the news in a completely different light. I'll watch the news and I would see, like a double homicide and a drowning and then like a car fire, and I'm like, the first thing I think is, what borough was that in? Because if that's Manhattan, I can't make dinner tomorrow. I'm gonna have to cancel a show because we're gonna be there till fucking 6 o'clock because these assholes decided to fucking murder each other. Fuck you! You're ruining my dinner plans, and that's what it becomes.
Well, it does. It becomes a job. I mean, and the thing is, it loses its luster anywhere. After you work for a job for a while, no matter what you do, it becomes a job. So even when you first start out and you have the glitz and glamour in your eyes, and you're like, all right, eventually it just becomes another Tuesday.
Yeah, no, it totally, it kind of, I don't know, I feel like I might have lost some of my humanity because, day in and day out, you're just like, fucking. You become
jaded, though. Yeah, you will.
Yeah, this gunshot to the face. That guy has terrible pubes. Look at those. And you just, it just becomes that.
Well, and it does, yeah, because that's what you see. Now, we have another comment coming in here, and it's from someone from here in Pittsburgh, and he says, yeah, Pittsburgh is pretty crazy. I couldn't imagine New York, just like I had just said. Yeah, we've really jumped up in the murder rate here. It's pretty wild. I mean, it's multiple murders every night and every week here. And, I mean, Pittsburgh's like a fucking speck compared to New York, so that's why I said it's pretty crazy.
I don't know. My husband just texted me that Pittsburgh actually has a higher murder rate than New York. So, yeah.
Well, okay. I guess actually it would. So if you do it per capita because of the amount of people compared to the murders, yeah, compared to New York, we would probably blow it out of the water, I would imagine. Because there's not near as many people, but there's a shit ton of murders here, especially the last year or two. It's become. I'm like, I guess we're trying to be the new Baltimore or Chicago. I don't know.
Oh, God, who wants to be Baltimore? Jesus, I've never been there. I'm sorry. Like, I'm sure there are some great people from there, but all I hear are just fucking weird horror stories. I know John Waters is from there, but, like, all I hear is weird, crazy, bad shit.
Yeah, Baltimore's no joke. It's crazy. I have some friends from Baltimore, and they're all the time talking about how they don't live there anymore, but they're all the time like, oh, yeah, you don't fuck around in Baltimore. Baltimore's crazy. Have you ever...
Just look at their Zillow Gone Wild, and that's enough to know.
I don't think I've ever looked at any homes in Baltimore on Zillow.
Just go to Zillow Nightmares and then search Baltimore.
That's awesome. I could do that.
Yeah, it's really fun.
Now, let's see what else we got here. I have some people just randomly talking to each other on the stream, so I don't think they're talking anything with us. So why don't you tell us a little bit about then? I think... If I'm correct, and correct me if I'm wrong, the book was sparked by the working in the morgue. Is that correct?
Yeah. When I was homeless 19 to 22, and I was on drugs, and it was a part of life that most people don't see. And everyone always told me, oh, you got to write a book about that. But I was young, and I was on heroin and meth, so I don't really remember all of it like well enough to write a book, I don't think. I mean... But after I worked and I love writing. Comedy is writing. People forget that. And I've written some scripts for some cartoons and stuff. And I've always, started screenplays. But I am first and foremost, I consider myself a writer. And every day working in the morgue, I would, during lunch, I'd go outside and I would just hop on my phone and just take notes about the cases I've been working on, which is they really don't want you to do. But I was like, fuck it, I'm using this shit. I'm not going to work here forever. And I would just sit and write down everything I could remember, like what the blood smelled like, what the bullet casing looked like, just everything. And really to keep it visceral, what the smells were like. So by the end of my almost year there, I had just all these notes from cases I'd been writing. And I'm like, I got to write a book about this. So, I'm about 150 pages in, and it's difficult to find time to write because I live in New York and I have to work 7 hours a week, and do shows and starting a podcast. But I am going to finish this book and try to pitch it to a book agent. But it's a memoir. It's me with no medical experience, having been a previous sex worker and comedian, going into being an autopsy assistant. I mean, I'm the one taking the blood samples for homicide cases. It's a lot of responsibility. You learn a very technical, specialized skill, and you're not supposed to talk about any of it when you work there. They were upset that I was writing jokes on stage when comedy came back, and I was like, well, I have to quit because they're not going to let me do they were trying to restrict what I talked about on stage, and I was like, are you fucking kidding me? So, but yeah, I mean, it's just a memoir. I'm working title is Deadpan. I probably will call it something else, but it's just about my whole experience, and then changing the names, of course, but then the cases I worked on and all of the body horror and disgusting and tragic things and child murders and everything that I saw while I worked there, and a really black sense of humor.
No, I think it's certainly interesting, and it gives a perspective not often seen, to mix the comedy, mixing it with the visceral side of being an autopsy technician and kind of everything else that you've gone through. To bring that together into a book, I think would be a very interesting read. So hopefully when the time comes and it's polished up and you pitch it, I hope that it is received well and taken by someone, because I think it'd be something that a lot of people would want to read and hear more of.
Yeah, I was just posting some of the notes I was writing during the day on Facebook until I got a stern speaking to about that. But I was having huge reactions from it, and so the point where people were sending me Venmo as like tips. I was getting a couple $100 per post about that, and I was like, oh, I got to write a book. So people are into it.
They are. The thing is darkness will always be something that human beings crave, whether they openly admit it, whether they're somewhat admit it, or whether they completely act like they're not. Even the person from down the street who's the epitome of good and light has a dark side. We all
they watch true crime, they sit there and they're salacious over Dateline, that kind of shit.
Exactly. Or they're watching hardcore porn at night when their family's sleeping, and they're what I mean? Like they're doing some crazy shit that you don't know about. Well, I don't believe that any true good people exist. There's always a dark side, and that's because we're made from light and dark. There's always duality in everything, and it's different extremes to different people, but everyone has some type of shadow side or dark side that they either have embraced or they tuck away, but it's there. So that's why dark things always get good sells. That's why the ID channel, and that's why shows like Snapped and things have such great ratings, because even though it's fucked up, people love watching it, and they're always going to.
I mean, have you been on Reddit threads like Morbid Reality? I mean, there's so many people on those threads, and it's just gore, and like I go to it for my gore fix since I quit the morgue. Every now and then I just need that, but it's extremely popular.
And it is, and people like to buy that. Like I said, they'll spend money on it because they want to kind of tap in and feed that dark hunger. So I think the book will do well. Keep everybody posted on it. And if you need me to do a spotlight commercial when the time comes, I'm more than happy to do so. Now, I'm really curious, though. So, obviously, we know the book's happening, and you're working on the book, but you had mentioned writing a cartoon to try to pitch it to one of the networks. What is the cartoon about? Now, I'm very curious.
So, the cartoon's been in the works for a while. So, me and my co-producer, Jonas Barnes, he came up with the idea, and then I wrote all the scripts. So we have 2.5 episodes written. The first episode has been edited 1 million times, and I think it's pretty at the point. It's almost perfect. I had some interest from a guy. I'm not going to name drop someone big, and their critique was that it needed to be dumber. Basically, they're like, it's too smart. There's too many Easter eggs. You got to dumb it down, and I didn't like that, and I kind of gave up on it after that. But I've decided that I'm going to finance it, like the animation, on my own, and pitch it and then see, and if they still say, give me some critique like that, honestly, I'm just going to wait for my mom to die to get some inheritance, and then I'm just going to fucking make the cartoon with that money. So what it is it's a serial killer cartoon. It's Jeffrey Dahmer, Richard Ramirez, John Wayne Gacy, Ted Bundy, and wait, who else? Remember H.H. Holmes, and they live together like a sitcom. So they live together in a house, and they got brought back to life. H.H. Holmes is actually the devil, and John Wayne Gacy goes and he runs for mayor as a Democrat, and like Bundy runs against him as a Republican, and there's a lot of like gay jokes between like Dahmer and Gacy being really homophobic, and it's a fucking sitcom with a sitcom format, and like, who fucked the head in the fridge? That was my turn. Like, fuck, it's a comedy about serial killers. So it's $1,000 for every minute of animation. Wow. If you didn't know, now you know. And I need 5 minutes to pitch, so I need an extra $5,000 to get this thing off the ground. I have the scripts are registered with the Writers Guild America East, so you can't take my idea. Sorry, it's already copyrighted, and that's why I'm talking about it. And I already have character designs that I paid for by an artist, and I mean, we're ready to go. I just need the money for what's called an animatic for the pitch.
Okay. Should maybe look at doing some type of large-scale GoFundMe style, dedication to it, where you kind of give samples of things to the folks out there and ask for donations. They can do well. I have a friend, he doesn't do that any longer, but he's in the film side of things, and he filmed a couple short movies that went to festivals and things like that, and he did it strictly off of, I'm going to present the storyline, I'm going to present some art and some pictures and some things like that, and he even put tiers of donations. You get certain things, and he funded his first couple movies off of that, and then now he's got people who just fund it, where they reach out to him and say, we want to donate $10,000 to you to bring this vision of yours to life, or this. So he doesn't even have to do those anymore, but they can work very well. Now the problem with that is too many people want to use it for everything, but when you actually have a legit reason like this, it makes sense. But you have people like, my cat died, I'm doing a GoFundMe for $14,000's my goal. What the fuck do you need a $14,000 for? So I can move. What's that have to do with your cat? It doesn't. I just really want $14,000.
It's crossed our mind. I think I'm still open to it. I saw, I won't name them, there's another cartoon in the same vein of me, and they tried that and they failed, and it was sad to watch, but I could try it. I'm going to do it eventually. I mean, no, it's a really unique idea that I can't believe nobody's done it. I still can't believe it hasn't been done. And I only had, besides saying it needs to be dumber, I've had pretty positive reception from the plot points and the way the script's written and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, we'll see.
That's the problem though nowadays, and my wife has told me this multiple times, is we live in a culture now where dumb is good. And I have a hard time with that. And that was the thing for the longest time. I was a pretty good artist, and my music was obviously very dark. I did horrorcore, hardcore hip hop, but I always said, like, why is this not getting bigger? I'm noticing so many artists that are not half as good as I am getting way bigger than me.
Dude, you're preaching to the choir here. Again, I will reiterate, I am not a jaded, angry comic. I'm grateful for the successes I've had, but oh my God!
Well, and that's it though. It's the dumber thing, because she kept saying, she's like, honey.
No, that's what I'm saying. I'm
like, it has to be dumber. She's like, you have to dumb it down. People's attention span's 2 minutes. She's like, and plus, they don't like to think, because they feel now we're kind of programmed that your day is hectic, work's hectic, this and that. So whenever they try to seek entertainment, they don't want entertainment that makes them think. They want entertainment that'll numb the pain. Entertainment has now become the drug. They just want something that they can click the button on the remote and be like, oh.
I know, dude. Nobody wants to think. They don't want to bait. I mean, I'd like to think that most of my joke writing's pretty clever and requires a little more thought processes than what... there's comedians out there that just have these stupid catchphrases, and they just do really basic material about the differences between men and women, and it's just, to me, it makes me sick. But I'm a fucking comedy snob, so I'm also an entertainment snob in general. So I mean, yeah, I hate that dumber is the thing now. It's gross. I mean, look how simple pop songs are. It's so simple. It's like 4 notes and a repeat and then a chorus and a repeat. And I don't understand how people can just listen to that over and over again. But they I mean, I'm on antidepressants. I guess, I don't know. Everyone has their thing.
Well,
Whatever.
I mean, that's how it's been. Like a lot of even hip hop music nowadays, you know, certain artists and things, the songs have shortened. So songs got shorter and shorter and shorter. And now you have a lot of artists who put out like 2 to 2.5 minute songs, which is weird because like 2.5 minutes, I don't know. I grew up with like 5 minute songs, and you know that was kind of average. And it was like 2 to 2.5 minute songs where 1 minute and 45 seconds of it is a hook being repeated several times throughout the song. So you're only getting like 30 to 40 seconds of actual spitting bars. And they're not bars. I mean, it's not.
Yeah.
I don't even want to say that. That's an insult. But like they do a little bit of rapping, and then it's just the hook repeating and repeating with a badass beat, and people are like, "This is a hit." I'm like, "No, that's like a sample.
Yeah,
that's a sample of something."
All that. I'm sorry. I'm 39, and I'm about to make myself sound 65. All that goddamn mumble rap with these damn kids. Okay.
Well, that was made for a purpose, though. That is actually, not to get
what, to
conspiracy
drink lean
theory.
to?
Well, but that's the point. Is that is not by accident. That is, I truthfully believe that was brought upon by forces much more powerful than what we realize and see.
Wait. Hold on. You think that mumble rap is brought on by a spiritual force? Are you about to say that?
No, not spiritual.
Okay, because I was about to lose my shit.
No,
right.
So I believe that mumble rap has been financed by some of the elite of the world, where they have paid billions of dollars to sign and make artists into clowns. So when we see these artists with tattoos all over their face who look like cartoon characters, who are jumping around saying nothing, and they're wearing dresses and they're doing all these things. I'm not trying to get to conspiracy theory, because I think most conspiracy theories are silly.
You're
but
right into Sam Tripoli territory.
Well, I believe that is the case, because here's the thing. It's no far stretch to say that even though slavery has ended, and even though segregation has ended in its traditional form, it hasn't ended. It's just changed forms.
Well,
so hip-hop was the method and platform that anybody could be a part of, but what is it predominantly run by or showcased by is African Americans? Well, how do you ruin the platform that they have? You bring a bunch of fucking clowns in, and you have them start wearing dresses and tattooing their faces with shit that doesn't even make sense. It's not even like they're gang tattoos or they're like strong they're silly tattoos. It's like they got like fucking Pac-Man on their face.
Well, Dave Chappelle said the same thing. He, remember when he had that big break, I think in the early aughts, and he went to Africa for a while, and he just kind of quit showbiz. He specifically talked about producers telling him you to like dress up like a woman and wear dresses in movies and stuff. And he was like, what the fuck? Like, why? So, I mean, I've been deep into conspiracy culture previously in my life, and I know all this. Oh man, I grew up on this shit. I was watching Alex Jones when he was on public access when I was a kid. All right, like I know where this. I get it, and some of this stuff is legit. Some of it's valid, and I do think that, like what you said about slavery and segregation, it never really ended. You look at redlining and the segregation of the wealth distribution in a city, and these people live here, and the white flight goes here, and then we're going to keep this inner city area over here in poverty, and we're going to put the Section 8 housing here, but we're going to keep the property line. That stuff is not an accident. So that segregation still exists, but it's based on, class now, not so much skin color. And then, of course, what you said is legit.
It is. I mean, because with hip hop, the thing is they take the power away from the people by giving them power. So now, why do most people like that hit song? It's not because it's a hit song. It's because they tell you it's a hit song. So a song comes out today By next week, they showcase it on every music station out there. They push it on the radio. The announcers and all the disc jockeys out there, what are they saying? The number one hit in the world. Now, you automatically believe it's the number one hit in the world. You don't go and actually do like fine-tuned research to figure out, no, it isn't. You just hear, oh, well, this is the number one song in the world. So when you hear that, you go tell your friend, you hear that number one song in the world right now by fucking, Dipshit? And no, yeah, I love Dipshit. And then they start talking about it. And it makes it bigger. They control us by red flagging us and giving us false flags. Now, what that does is it builds up a culture that people love what they're told to love. So this is the hit song right now, and millions of Americans, and I'm just using an American example, jump around and are like, I love this song. But if you actually were to deprogram that person and say, do you really love that song? They'd be like, no, that song's garbage. But I mean, I don't know. They told me it was the thing I needed to love.
They love it because their friends love it, and they want to be a part of something because people need tribalism. It's why people need sports ball, which I've never understood. I've never understood why someone would like lay down all their time and their money for a team that they've never played on, they have no personal connection to, and they don't even know how to play the game, but they act like it's such a personal experience for them. I've never understood it.
I like sports, but I don't like. There's a book that came out a while back, and it was called The 5 Levels of Attachment. And it tells you how to break levels of attachment, because we all have levels of attachment of things in our life, and it tells you how to free yourself from that and really reach higher consciousness. But the point of the book is it talks about the 5th level is fanaticism, and it talks about a sports fan, and it talks about there are sports fans when they lose the game, they feel sad. Like then like you have personal. They're like, oh man, I can't believe my team lost. Then you have a deeper level. You have the person when their team loses, they're upset, like their day's ruined. They go around, they're having a hard time. Then you have the fanatic. The team loses, they're like punching holes in the wall. They're breaking shit. They see that person across the street wearing the opposite team jersey, and they run over and kick the shit out of them because their team lost. They don't even know that person, but they just physically assaulted someone because their team lost. And then said, but same thing you just said. You have no actual attachment to that team. It's all made up in your head because we are so programmable since the day of birth, and we've been programmed.
I mean, you're just describing all of South America's football.
Yeah, like, they go fucking crazy down there, man. Their soccer shit goes nuts.
Oh, God.
They like fucking burn down towns if their team loses.
Shit. That's why I'm like, God damn, sports. Like, I thought it was bad in high school getting fucking hassled by the jocks, but go to South America and watch a fucking football game. Fucking run for the hills, man. What? And I'm looking at this stuff going, what in the living fuck? Like, yeah, I've never been a sports person. I don't, I throw something in the trash and I make the trash can and I yell sports because that's the level of my sports.
Well, and it's crazy though. So when we're talking about programming, and then we'll jump out of this in just a second, but they control. When I say they, make it whoever you want.
Are you talking about the lizard people?
The lizard people.
I totally fuck a reptilian. They probably have like a double-sided dick. Oh, Reptar, fucking give it to me. Like, I would fuck a reptilian. I don't know. I mean, listen, I would fuck any alien, actually. And my husband says it's not cheating because it's a different species. And he can't bring to the table what they can bring, He can bring human dick. And I'm not allowed any other human dicks, but I could do an alien dick. Anyway, that's a tangent.
So if anybody out there's listening, it's of another existence.
Pleiadian, gray, reptilian, I'll fucking take all your dicks.
It's free game, Dick Central here.
Let's do it.
But I mean, they do programs. So I mean, think of this fact. So like I said, they dumb down rap. When you go back to the old heads like Method Man, when you go to KRS-One, and you go to these cats that have been around a long time, they will tell you like this is not by accident. This is being staged. You have a lot of up and comers that disappeared off the map that have come forth and said, which is a very popular thing in hip hop, in order to become to the next level, I needed to take dick from everybody in the room.
No, come on, really? Are you telling me that, like, you look at 50 Cent's face and now imagine him taking all that dick? Do you think
And I'm not saying that all of them have, but I'm saying I think a bunch of them have taken some dick.
I mean, there's nothing wrong. I just want to say this to the audience. There's nothing wrong with taking some dick if you're a man or a woman or whatever, but only if it's consensual and not because a giant record contract's being dangled in front of you, and if you don't take the dick, then you don't get it. That's not cool.
There's a specific artist, and I won't mention names. He's a very large name. And it's been said by multiple people over the years that to be a part of his organization, you got to take the dick. And and several artists have not, and they've come forward and said, that's why you didn't hear from me anymore. They're like, that's why I was blowing up, and then I just vanished off the scene, because they were helping give me traction, and then they wanted me to get my shit pushed in, because it's not, in their eyes, it's not a gay thing. It is a dominance thing.
It's a power thing.
Because they can always hold it over your head. Once they've done that, they own you.
Harvey Weinstein thing was. It's not about like enjoying sex. It's about power. It's always about power. Like, of course. Yeah, and that's just a male dominant bullshit. Yeah, that sucks. That really sucks. But at least you're not saying that they're drinking adrenochrome. Taking dick and drinking adrenochrome, I mean, and I think one's more realistic, so.
We have a comment that came and says, back in the day, when I was in my early 20s, if the Steelers or the Penguins lost, I was legitimately in a bad mood and people stayed away from me. As to what Lauren is saying, soccer fans get super crazy.
Yeah, they do. I mean, I don't know why it's not more of like a stereotype that's used in, like cartoons or popular culture, because it's like, oh God, the team lost, like they are going to burn that town down. Like,
they burn it down, or there's just so many of them packed into one stadium that they all crowd up to the barrier, and then it collapses. And
they don't stop having fucking kids because they're also Catholic, and they burn everything. It's like there's so many of them. I don't know if you know who this comic is, Mark Norman. It was great. He was actually on a late night show, which they monitor heavily. I'll tell you about that in a second. It's very censored. And he came out and he said, hey, are there any Puerto Ricans here? And a big group of people went, yeah. And he just went, too many. I mean,
well, and like you said, I mean, if the extreme Catholics, I mean, yeah, they don't believe, if you're extreme Catholic, they don't believe in any type of contraceptive. So I don't know. There's nothing like having a bunch of kids and then burning shit down. You know what I mean? Like we praise Jesus, we have children, and then we destroy shit. It's very strange.
Sounds like a KKK family or something. Like, we're just going to go burn some crosses, burn some shit down.
Well, and the thing is, a lot of those are extremely Christian, too.
I know. There's so many connects between extreme groups. If you any extreme group, you're going to find some similarities. Like, extreme, I was going to say Orthodox Muslim. That's probably not the right way to say it. Is strict Muslim, like, but the women cover everything. And then look at, like, the Amish, and the women wear fucking skirts down to their ankles because you can't show those sexy ankles. So it's the same in both religions,
All religions are tied together, and whether it's belief systems or a lot of different things like that, where there is a lot of similarities between them. Yeah, it's strange. It's weird for me because I'm a huge fan of theology, and I love to hear about the beliefs of different religions, but I'm not a religious man. I am a practitioner, but I take religion. It's hard for me to even say that I add religion in, but I take religion away. I kind of formed my own practice, which you could say is a religion, but it's
my
cult,
it's your religion, but you're not like standing on the corner of 42nd, like telling people they're going to fucking burn if they don't do it your way. So, I mean,
no, I say join me. Let's all burn together. That's what I'm promoting. I'm holding a sign like, who wants to burn with me? Let's get it.
And then a bunch of like 420 kids are just going to show up and be like, "Did you say you wanted to burn?
You want to burn, man?" Like, no, bro, I'm not talking what you're talking.
Legal now. You want to burn? Yeah.
Now, before we finish out the episode, let's jump into one other song, and then we'll come back, have you tell us where we can check you out at, anything else you have coming up, and that's burned our hour and a half that quickly. It always goes by so quick. I'm going to pick this one. This is Illitant. Talking about rap, this is some badass rap here. This is an artist by the name of Illitant, and this is In the Zone here on Uncovering the Underground. We'll be right back after this.
We in the zone, no telling where it's gotta go. No going home, things change, gotta seize the moment and own it, it, yeah. Tell me how you hype, just say so. Man, I'm living life, I don't lay low. Burst of weapons and I guess I bring a payload. Shocking out of anybody in my way, whoa. Tell the devil I'll be back to get my halo. Till then the motherfucker better stay home. All the power that I hold is finna blow the roof off. Any place I bring a mic, I might take souls. Back up, the shit is real as it gets so. Flow cold, dead nice like a headstone. Rappers popping up, I make them vanish like presto. Stop, drop and roll, I make a fire just to get smoke. Life ain't living it in luxury, nah. But I'm someone they all wanna be, yeah. Guess it's saying that I must just be the next best thing to ever come and touch the scene, whoa. Man, I'll make a wave like Poseidon. Soon enough you gonna see me with the trident. King in my blood until the day I stop rhyming. Which will be never cause my intelligence climbing. Look, y'all been irrelevant, better settle with bars. 16's off, rip like I'm a veteran dog. I've been better than many, stepping in the middle to spar. I feel a little me ain't literally a star.
We in the zone, no telling where it's gotta score. No going home. Things change, gotta seize the moment and own it, yeah.
Shit go hard, no doubt about that. Power for the moving, then we bring it right back. Like I'm just going pedal to the metal in the fast life. Hoping that you get up on the way before it crash right. Telling me that I'ma get it whenever the right time comes. But they will never be ready for that when I hype my buzz. I've been living alone and I'm feeling like I'm in the zone right now. So close to blowing up like I'm the bomb right now. Whoa, checking for the team get big. We all no doubt been on that heat wave shit. Everything we do is been a banger for your ears. Perfect melodies, we hungry so we eat that shit. Making waves at a rapid pace, I can pass the days. But talking crafty words in a crazy pattern for accolades. We have the greats anatomy, damn, I'm just here to have the stage. A rap to y'all what I've written and thought over the passing days. But it's plain and in vain to the whole game knowing that my pain and my game be the same thing showing. When my name be the thing and they all speak hoping that I say every page, leave no line left open. I'm a G-O-D, you just a D-O-G. I keep my shit low key until the beat O-D. I'm in the Z-O and E until I throw in the key. Just keep on throwing the heat, they know me, cause we
in the zone. No telling where it's gotta score. No going home. Things change, gotta seize the moment and own it, yeah. We in the zone. No telling where it's gotta score. No going home. Things change, gotta seize the moment and own it, yeah.
All right, folks, we're back on Uncovering the Underground, and that song was In the Zone, and that was by Illitant. And he has not been a guest on the show, but he sent that in a couple seasons ago and wanted us to feature that on the show, and I've played it multiple times. Love that track. And that is certainly not mumble rap, and any of the rappers I've ever had on are not mumble rap because I won't support that shit because it's garbage, for one, and two, it's all an agenda. So what we have going on here, there's some other random chit-chat going on in the chat stream here, and I have someone saying before she goes, can she tell a joke? But I mean, that's kind of putting you on the spot, so I don't feel like you need to do that.
Well, I mean,
it's hard to just tell a joke.
Comics hate that, by the way. Like, if you're ever...
Hey, tell me a joke, funny man.
We all fucking hate that. We're like, are you a doctor? Why don't you take my appendix out? Why don't you do that for me? Why don't you show me what you can do at your job? Or if you're in an Uber, the one thing we do is we never tell an Uber driver we're a comic because, oh God, then the conversation, oh really? Tell me a joke. Like,
you don't have to tell a joke.
No, I mean, I can tell. I can.
Well, no, because I get it. Trust me, I've had that happen all the time. People are like, you're a rapper. I'm like, yeah, they're like, spit something for me. I'm like, I'd rather not.
Oh, fuck you. Well, I'll tell you what. I've actually done. I haven't. So a joke is a format. There's a setup and there's a punch, and there's a tension and a release. I've actually told you some of the premises of some of my jokes in some of the conversations we've had. You have, yes. Yeah, when we were talking about the morgue and the fat people and stuff, like those were some premises, but I didn't tell the actual joke. But if you go to YouTube and search my name, Lauryn with a Y, Lauryn Petrie, you pull up my page and you can watch all the comedy I have up there. I need to put some new shit up, but like, yeah, watch the newest stuff. I have old stuff too. So yeah, I mean, one thing comics do to each other that they hate is they sneak their new jokes into conversation between each other and see if they get reactions, and that's how they'll judge if they think something's gonna hit. And we do it to each other, and we all fucking hate it. You know, every now and then you'll be having a conversation with another comic, like, are you fucking running bits on me, bro? Is that a bit? Are you fucking trying shit out on me? Fuck you.
Makes sense,
you know?
though. Kind of test the waters before you go test it live, you know?
Yeah, I mean, but it happens. Sometimes your best stuff comes from, like, you being funny in a conversation when you didn't even mean to, you know, because you're not, like, sitting down with the intention of, like, I got to be funny now. It just happens naturally.
Well, and it's hard to be put on the spot like that. Like I said, I mean, whether it be comedy, whether it be music. I mean, I have spit for people before. They're like, rap for me. But most of the time, I'm like, nah, I'm cool, man. But I mean, even like the occult thing, I'm a very well-known occultist. And I don't know how many times people have been like, so... you know, like a lot of hidden stuff. I'm like, yeah, I've spent, you know, quite a long time studying.
Hey, Frater Crow, hey, make me a sigil right now.
Well, people have legitimately been like, so you work with spirits? I'm like, yeah, I mean, there's many different avenues of magic. There's, you know, hundreds. But the avenues I specifically focus on is divination, spiritual alchemy, and conjuration of spirits. That's my main bread and butter, is the conjuration, what you think magic is and you see in horror movies and they're conjuring devils and demons. That has always been my main bread and butter, and it's very real. So when someone asks me about it, I tell them that, and they're like, all right, conjure one right now and let me see it.
Yeah, right. You're
It's
like,
always like, I'm like, asshole, I'm standing in the middle of the street right now. It's like 4 o'clock in the afternoon on a Tuesday. I'm like, I don't have anything with me.
That is hilarious. Like that, if you were a comic, you would write a bit about people asking you to conjure shit like in the grocery store.
Fuck
you
yeah,
know,
I
and
would.
like how inappropriate that is.
Yeah, like, yeah, just why don't you call Beelzebub and have him pop up right now, brother?
You want Belial to fix your sour milk? Like, what's he gonna do? Clean up on aisle 6? Like, oh, fuck you.
And it's almost like you want to be like, you know what? Why don't you come over Saturday night at 11:30 p.m., bring a chicken, and you just stay silent, and I'll show you what you're asking for. And then they're like, nah, I'm cool, man.
I mean,
like,
I'll do that.
Like, but I thought you wanted to see it. Nah, I was just fucking with him. It's always fun until they were like, oh shit, he's like offended and he's legitimately wanting to show me now. I don't want to see it.
I'll bring you like some blood and some hair. Like, what do you want to do?
I just want
like,
the chicken. Just bring the chicken.
I want to see something. You know, look, I'm open-minded. I've believed in ghosts and aliens my whole life, and I've never seen shit. And I'm the one that goes out and screams at the sky, like, show me yourself. Abduct me, take me. Like when I worked in the morgue.
But you're looking at it wrong, though, because here's the thing. There's all these grimoires written that I evoked the spirit of Paimon, and as I did, he showed up riding the camel, and he had a ducal crown on his head draped in purple ivory. No, it doesn't work like that. Now, you can see visions in your mind's eye, and that will happen. You can see things in the black scrying mirror or within the censer smoke of the censer or the incense burner. You can have that happen. That's how magic works. But there's this whole niche thing that's going on right now where people are writing books and they're like, as I called forth the great Belial, he came standing upon an ivory throne. Crimson dripped from the walls as he stood 20 feet deep above me. No, bro. You are some Stephen King edgelord fucking false prophet bullshit. And you're just taking advantage of people out there who want to believe so hard that they jump right into it. Magic is very real, folks. It is very real. It's everything you heard it is and more, but it's nothing that you heard. And when someone says, what the hell does that mean? Everything you could think is possible, but it doesn't happen like a lot of people present it. Whenever you call this demon or this daemon forward, it doesn't step through the wall 30 feet deep, 30 feet tall, and stand before you.
It's not like a Marvel movie?
It's not like a Marvel movie, and that's what a lot of people paint it out to be. But with the same token, if you learn how to do certain breathing techniques, meditative techniques, and can get into a certain zone of the mind, a certain frequency, a hypnotic state, and you can sit there in a certain state of mind, and you do the rituals and incantations and invocations properly, and you follow the right planetary hours and everything, it's a science, it's mathematics. If you follow the mathematical formula to a T, and you learn how to program your mind to get into that trance state, I can guarantee that you will have things happen that are like that. And someone could say, well, it only happened in your mind. It's fantasy. No, you will feel when something takes over your mind, and all of a sudden you have a snapping vision into your brain where there are things visiting you in your mind. And then afterwards, you're like, holy fuck. Now, everyone else in the world would think you're crazy. You just thought that up. It was just your imagination. No, it wasn't. But you can't experience what I have because you haven't been through the training that I have. You haven't done the things that I've had to reach that level. It's like with paranormal. People always say, well, I've never seen a ghost. When is the last time you went to a very extremely haunted location by yourself in the middle of the night and sat for 6 hours with not another living soul around and talked out loud to the spirits and says, show yourself to me, let me experience it? Everyone always says, well, I never have. Exactly. Shut up.
I did do this, though. When I worked in the morgue, I went into the freezers and the fridges. They're not freezers. The fridges where we kept the bodies, and I sat on the floor in there in the dark and, like, asked for something. And, you know, nothing happened.
Well, and it's not always going to. But, I mean, I could send you evidence that's pretty profound that there's spirits all over the place. I mean, ghosts, that's the easy one. Getting things like demons and things is much harder.
I have a theory is why there's none in the morgue. And it's because if you're a spirit coming to visit your body, I think the last thing you want to see is somebody removing your fucking brain and cutting open your body. The spirits probably show up to the morgue and they're like, oh, I'm straight. Like, I'm good. And they leave.
Well, that, and I mean, I have a theory, and I don't want to speak too much on it tonight. I'm presenting in August at a convention a very elaborate presentation on ethereal dynamics, quantum physics, quantum theory, and ethereal, I guess I'll just go with ethereal dynamics. Like I said, it's hard to explain. And I'm going to kind of go over my theory of how paranormal activity happens, where it comes from, and it's much different than anything anybody's ever heard before. And it's at a paranormal convention, so a lot of people are probably not going to like it. A lot of people will be kind of intrigued. But it's through profound years of experience studying. I've traveled all over the country and done paranormal investigations. I've spent thousands of hours talking to spirits, gathering evidence on spirits. So I've come to a new realization of how spirits work, and it's not how we think it is. And they're everywhere, but, you know, there's certain mechanics that have to take place. So if you're interested in that, folks, sometime in August, Pennsylvania, Hillview Manor, one of the most haunted locations in the country, come to the paranormal convention there. It's called HillCon, and I will be giving I think it's a 40-minute speech lecture to a crowd there on that. Now, as we are running out of time here, Lauren, why don't you tell us where we can check you out at, any other announcements and things you would like to showcase real quick, and then we'll go ahead and finish out for the evening.
Yeah, so I'm starting a podcast in July, and it's just called Alien Murder Sex. It's with my very good friend Adrian Cuss, and we're just going to talk about true crime in the news, paranormal stuff, and then at the end of every episode, we're going to review a porn. And so that's our podcast, and it eventually we're going to be recording it at Gas Digital, which is a huge comedy network. And you can check me out. I'm on all the social media, all the bullshits, as I call it. You know, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and it's all the same. It's the Lauryn Petrie. And go to YouTube. Go to YouTube and check out my stuff. You know, it's just type my name in. Type my name into the internet. Type my name into Google. Luryn Petrie. I mean, you'll find all the shits, all the things, and the videos, and you know. Yeah, I was so tempted. I was gonna maybe like tell this one joke, my most divisive joke, but you know, you just go watch a video. It just works better with a crowd. This is why Zoom comedy failed. So go watch a video.
Well, you heard it, folks. Go watch the videos, like her different pages, follow her different pages. If you are in the area, stop in at one of her shows and check her out. Support her podcast coming up in July. Support the cartoon as it's trying to get, you know, the fire behind it to maybe get aired and get, you know, sponsors behind that, and the book that she's writing right now as well. So there's a lot of great material coming your way. Chris had left a comment saying, "My apologies, Lauren. I meant no disrespect." You're fine, Chris.
Dude,
we didn't take any disrespect. We're
it's
busting
cool,
your
man.
balls because as artists, we always get that.
It's all good, dude. No, I didn't know, dude. I'm just
Perform for me, funny man. Perform.
I'm roasting you, bro. It's all good. Go watch a video, man. There's some really there's one of my favorite jokes. I have a 1 minute short up on YouTube. 1 minute of your time, it's about making abortions fun again. So, yeah.
Go check it out, folks. You'll get to see what it is she does. Support Lauryn and everything that she does. And if you're listening out there, make sure you tune in to June 9th. We have Renaissance Rock Orchestra coming on. And then June 23rd, our final episode, I'm not bringing on a guest. What I am doing in this case is I'm going to let all of you folks call in, and we're just going to have a fun chat with all of our fans out there. Who knows what we'll talk about? Who knows what will happen, but we're going to have fun with it. So feel free to tune into those 2 episodes. As I said, KOTN Knights of the Nephilim will kick in on June 30th. Our first 4 guests are Thomas Leroy of the Sect of the Horn God. Our second episode, we have Delomine Ra, who is a hoodoo specialist coming to us from out of Africa. His work is powerful. It is old, and I love it. I mean, I love what he does. Bare bones, get your hands dirty magic. After that, we have Sarah Mastros talking to us about old school witchcraft. And then after that, we have Kadrick Olson coming on talking to us about Viking magic. We had him on last season. Great guest. Paranormal specialist, has been on all kinds of different programs like Gaia TV and things talking about paranormal. And he's a specialist in that field. So make sure you check out those first 4 episodes. Support the last 2 of UTU. And I want to thank you guys for the last 17 episodes. As I said, we have 2 left, and then we'll return back January of next year. And we are really excited for all your love and support. Click the like, share, and follow button. And other than that, that's really about it. So, Lauryn, once again, thank you so much for coming on the show this evening. And
thanks for having me.
That's great. Absolutely. And good luck with everything to come. You have a lot of great stuff happening, and I'm really looking forward to all of it happening and coming out.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and I'd love to go to that Paranormal Con. That would be so cool.
Yeah, it should be a great event. They do a great event there every year and have a lot of great speakers and things. A lot of people that are known on TV, and then they have my ass up there talking weird shit, and I'm not on TV, and I don't want to be. So if you want to hear some real raw stuff that's not has any agenda behind it, folks, stop in. So we're going to play one last song as we finish out the evening, but thank you guys for listening in. This last song is from a group called Fubar, and this is Content Creator. Everybody have a wonderful night, and Lauryn will catch you next time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Whoa, whoa. The entertainment age is here at last. Too many racing, but not enough gas. Marketing off a bill of fuels. It's not anymore when there are no rules. Yeah, and I'm just like any other guy. I try to stick a finger in the pie. Sometimes love it ain't enough. The crust is too thick, my gun is getting hot. And we just keep on doing what we do. No time for me, I got no time for you. You better get with it, or you will never get this. All I really gotta say to you, you get treated the way you do. So when I'm old and lonely, try it, we're begging you to buy it. All it takes is a place and time, some decent music and a catchy rhyme, and people telling people that nobody is equal. Your flashy clothes and your attitude, demanding looks for your latitude. Believe you're on the level. This life is yours to revel.